Smart car buyers don't just stop with the analyzing of the monthly car payments or their fuel costs or even the insurance costs. There's another piece of the puzzle, and we're talking about annual maintenance, but over a long period of time. How about 10 years? Is that long enough? I mean, in most cases, I keep my vehicles anywhere from 5 to 10 years. And now with this whole tsunami of repossessions coming down, with this massive conversation around negative equity that people are faced with, buying a car 2 or 3 years ago often means that most people now are faced with negative equity. In other words, they owe the bank more than their car is worth if they were to sell it or trade it in today. So it's often now a conversation more about, how long can I keep this car on the road so I don't lose that much money? So a lot of people now are making these conscious decisions to sell their car maybe after 5 or 10 years rather than 2 or 3 years, where conventionally a lot of people would quickly flip their vehicles. Now, of course, with that said, over a 10-year time frame, you probably want to understand what some of those long-term maintenance costs look like. As well, on top of that, we can't forget that some manufacturers do offer up, a 2 or a 3 year free maintenance for the first couple of years. That's a small pence when you consider most people do like to keep their cars for a significant amount of time. And like I said, I'm one that keeps mine for close to 10 years. And so I like to understand what some of those costs are when you spread it out over a 10-year time frame. Now, electric vehicles obviously are going to be one of those vehicles that doesn't need fuel filters, fuel change, oil changes, oil services. You don't need, a lot of those factors that you don't see, or you do see in a lot of other vehicles, you won't see in electric vehicles. Now, electric vehicles, on the other hand, have more expensive tires, and of course, eventually you might have battery changes, so that might get blended out. But over a 10-year time frame, most electric vehicles still have their first set of batteries. But the internal combustion engine is really where this hits people hard, in the pocketbook. And I'm going to share some of those 10 of the most cost-effective vehicles, the most frivolous, the cheapest, the easiest to live with, and the vehicle most likely those concerned with the cost of living crisis. Let's start from the top. I'll give you the most expensive of the cheapest vehicles that you could possibly get your hands on, the brands that are likely going to save you a significant amount of money. You probably do care. I care. Because again, cost of living crisis is real. Inflation is on the climb. The cost of a brand new vehicle is on the climb. And even a junky used vehicle can cost you a significant amount of money. So you want to make sure that you're buying in for a world of hurt. So the number 10 slot goes to Honda. I mean, everybody trusts Honda as being that car brand that delivers, fuel economy, fuel efficient engines, of course, lower cost of maintenance. But they also have timing belts. And of course, some of those engines with the 1.5s had oil and fuel dilution issues. So they're not perfect, and their CVT transmissions have left a little bit to be desired. But generally, Honda is a fairly reliable brand. And even with that said, we're talking about a $5,850 spread over a 10-year time frame. That's an average of $585 a year. And this is in US funds. That's a very cost-effective vehicle to own, whether you're looking at a Civic or you're looking at an Odyssey or an Accord. There's a lot of great options in the Honda world, and that's always going to be a great bet. Now, Consumers Reports really has done a great job of compiling a lot of this information, so we're going to consolidate this into one easy-to-buy package. And in the near future, we're going to also tell you some of the worst vehicles that you're going to get your hands on for highest cost of maintenance over a 10-year time frame. So let's move to number 9, and this is an up-and-comer, and I do truly believe that not only is it a lower cost of servicing and maintenance over a 10-year time frame, but the overall reliability is very, very good on this brand. And because it's an import, you're going to expect slightly elevated costs, but again, it does very well. These are one of the best and most cost-effective vehicles. We're talking about Mazda, which is going to average you about $5,800 over a 10-year time frame. I love the Mazdas. I think they're doing great things nowadays. You got to give them a look if you're looking for something smaller, more cost-effective, more budget-friendly. And again, performance. You can get the GTs with the turbos or non-GT turbo variants. Of course, you can get, the 2.5 liters. You can the Mazda 3s. The CX-5 is a fun little SUV, popular. CX-50 is even nicer. It's lower, wider, and it looks very sporty. So give them a look if you're looking for something cost-effective. Another one in line, number 8, and again, we'll work our way to the cheapest one here, is Nissan at $5,700. Now, Nissan's had their chops busted the last couple of years with CVT troubles, and of course, you do have to maintain them. You do have to change the fluids, check your tolerances on that. But at the end of the day, a well-maintained Nissan can provide many years of fun service. Now, it's usually their engines are pretty solid in Nissan and Infiniti. It's usually their transmissions that are going to cause you a little more troubles. But even with that said, it's still a fairly cost-effective vehicle to own in 10 years time frame. The next one is Hyundai at $5,640. Again, a very cost-effective vehicle, an average of $564 per year. Some years are more, some years less. Some of the major service intervals might mean you have to spend a little more money certain years than others. But generally speaking, Hyundai is one of the more cost-effective vehicles to own. Chevrolet comes in at number 6 with $5,550 is your 10-year time frame consumption of costs if you're considering maintenance. Now remember, a lot of people start thinking about, okay, your service of, cost for to borrowing money. Obviously with inflation, cost of interest rates are going up. You definitely want to make sure that you consider not just your monthly payment, could be $500 a month. You have to think about your insurance, could be a couple $100 a month, could be another $300 or $400 a month in fuel costs. You have to then consider what is a monthly payment on a car like this. So a Chevy that's costing you $5,550 over 10 years, that's $550 per year. Spread out over monthly, it's about $50, $60 per month. So I have to add that in there just for budget purposes. Then the next one in line, believe it or not, found on Road Dead, is the Ford. And Ford comes in at $5,400. So $5,400 in a 10-year time frame is roughly what it's going to average out for your average Ford. Some are going to be more costly, we know that. You drive a diesel Super Duty, it's going to cost you more to maintain with the, with the bigger batteries, bigger tires, heavier duty everything. It's going to be more expensive to own one of those than it would be possibly to get, maybe an Escape. So there's going to be a differential there, and you got to drill in and really understand those cost differentials. But generally speaking, on average, Ford's about $5,400 a year. Next in line is number 4, shouldn't be a surprise, Lincoln, which is a little bit of a surprise. Usually Lincoln, being a Ford product, is often usually the luxury brand is usually more money than the non-luxury brand. But here's a case of Lincoln being the upscale Ford, costing you less on average in a 10-year time frame at $5,040. Then we move up to Toyota, would you believe it, at $4,900. Is actually cheaper than everything else we've seen so far. That should be of no surprise. Toyota, most of their engines are timing chains now. They don't do belts, so you reduce that service cost. Their brakes are small and easy to replace and cost effective. Tires are smaller on most Toyotas. They're generally not high performance, so they're lower cost there. I mean, everything generally in a Toyota is easier to maintain, easy to service, and reliable. Their parts are definitely well crafted and for the most part quite well engineered. And so general maintenance and reliability is going to be a win for Toyota. And it should be no surprise at $4,900. What is a bit of a surprise is number 2, and we're talking about a Buick at $4,900. A little bit of a surprise. They do have some of their bigger engines, but they're smaller vehicles like the Encore with the turbo 3-cylinder engines. Not a well-built vehicle, poor quality in my personal opinion from what I've seen, but the cost is there. I mean, it's still a small engine to repair and to maintain, and so generally speaking, Buick actually holds a fairly stout spot for maintenance costs. Now, maybe some of that is deferred maintenance, some of that is spread out, and again, some of these brands, we have to consider that some of them come with free maintenance, so that might knock down prices a little bit and skew the numbers a bit, but generally speaking, it's not a cost-prohibitive vehicle to own in general. Buick, which is a luxury up-brand of GM, General Motors. We know that. So there you go. And the drum roll, folks, one that probably is not a massive surprise. Now, with that said, you may love it, you may not love it. And quite frankly, it's an acquired taste. And also, when you start expanding or extrapolating outside that 10 to 15 year range, that's when the proverbial wheels start to fall off on some of these vehicles. And that's where a lot of these battery manufacturers from the brands like Rivian, Tesla, and so on and so forth are all facing some big struggles when you start to go beyond the warranty period of the batteries that are usually in that 8, 10, or 12 year range. Now, with that said, number one slot generally in 10 years is a Tesla. And we're talking about $4,035 in 10 years. So it's a relatively cost-effective vehicle to own. Yes, we know all of the drawbacks of owning an electric vehicle. We're not here to discuss that today, but general maintenance costs over a 10-year time frame, if that's your number one priority, maintenance costs are going to be lower on a Tesla. Even with the expensive tires, even with the fact that you might have some battery problems along the way. A lot of that's covered under warranty. And so generally, to own a Tesla outside of warranty could be a cost prohibitive thing if you start to replace batteries, and we've seen that. But within 10 years, which is often covering the battery warranty, is often covering you and saving you and protecting you for a period of time, that's the kind of vehicle that is going to be one of the lowest cost vehicles to own in 10 years. So that's your list. And if you're really strapped and if you're really worried about this whole cost of living crisis, like I am, like a good majority of Americans and Canadians today that are really worried about this, and even Europeans, we know that people across the globe are facing very similar struggles. And that's cost of living crisis. Taxes don't seem to be going away. They're going up. Cost of living crisis going up. Expensive vehicles and the price of the very magnitude of vehicles going up. So here we are having to keep our vehicles longer, keep them on the road longer, which is what I'm doing. And I've expressed this in my 2003 Ram. I just keep it trucking, keep it on the road longer. So people that are keeping their vehicles on the road longer, like these 10-year vehicles here, are going to care what that 10-year span is. I care, and I'm sure most of you do too. So hope that really helps all of you. If you're making a decision on your next vehicle, if you want to get into something that you know is going to be a fairly safe bet for the next 10 years for cost and maintenance and reliability, and it might be, kind of help you with your budgeting if you're going into this with understanding what the cost of the vehicle, gas, insurance, and now, of course, maintenance is one of the key, most important ingredients to think about. So with that said, I hope you check that video. If you get a chance to, that'd be greatly appreciated. Check it out, some of the best buys in 2024. You're going to love it. Hope to see each and every one of you on the next one. We'll see you real soon. Bye-bye.